What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so I want to go ahead and continue with this top 15 all-time shooting guards list. Just do a brief recap, of course. At number 15, I had Tracy McGrady. Number 14, Vince Carter. Number 13, Klay Thompson, which was a controversial pick, according to the comments I got. Number 12, Reggie Miller. Number 11, Ray Allen. Number 10, I had Earl the Pearl Monroe. And number 9, I had Sam Jones. Number 8, James Harden. Number 7, George Gervin. Number 6, Allen Iverson. Number 5, Clyde Drexler. Number 4, Dwayne Wade. And number 3, Jerry West. And number 2, I have Kobe Bean Bryant. There's been a concerted effort by many in the media to try to tarnish, or at the very least fade or erase to a certain extent the legacy of Kobe Bryant. You have people who like Colin Cowherd and others, Nick Wright, Shannon Sharp, people who now like to try to diminish Kobe Bryant, but I distinctly remember 10, 15 years ago, they said Kobe Bryant was the best player in the NBA. Now, all of a sudden, with this revisionist history, they'll tell you LeBron's been the best player since 2005, which is an absolute lie. It's a lie. At least that wasn't the consensus opinion. Kobe Bryant was the closest thing I ever seen to Michael Jordan. In fact, he had certain things in his game that were superior to Michael Jordan. He had better handles. He had more range, more moves. And to me, when he got hot, even though I know he was often criticized for taking bad shots, and there were times that he could take bad shots, because sometimes Kobe could get too caught up in the competitive aspect of one-on-one basketball. But he was the best, quote-unquote, tough shot maker that I've ever seen. I mean, I would see this guy bury shots falling out of bounds off the wrong leg. I mean, being double-teamed or guarded by a premier defender. And he would light him up for 40, 45, maybe 50 points. Of course, Kobe Bryant holds the record for a non-center as far as points in the game with 81. Second most points scored in any game in NBA history. January 22nd, 2006 against the Toronto Raptors. But there were other performances as well. 62 points in 3 quarters against a really, really good Dallas Maverick team that same season. I remember that, I think it was either that season or the next season. It might have been the next season. He had a game where he scored 51 points in 3 quarters against the Denver Nuggets. I remember a stretch where he had 4 consecutive games of at least 50 points, including, I believe, in that stretch was a 60-point game against, I think it was the Memphis Grizzlies, and a 65-point game against young Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge, and the Portland Trailblazers. It was an overtime game where Kobe just hit the incredible shot down the stretch of that game into overtime. 65 points. Yet the MVP went to Dirk Nowitzki that year. The year when he averaged 35.4 points per game, which was When you consider the fact that the league average was 97 points per game, when you consider that the Lakers only averaged 99 points a game that season compared to when James Harden averaged 36 for the Rockets several years later, the league average was like 113, not 113, excuse me, it was like 110, and the Rockets were averaging like 111. It's the number one season as far as scoring is concerned when you consider pace. If Kobe Bryant's team was playing at the pace of Wilt's Warriors team in 62, Kobe would have averaged 52 plus points per game. But he was more than scoring. Kobe was, especially when motivated, he was a lockdown defender. Kobe was an underrated passer. You know, for people that like to say that, man, Kobe didn't pass the rock. Excuse me. For people like to say that Kobe didn't pass the rock, well, he did average 4.7 assists per game, and in what I consider his prime, which is 2000 to about 2013, during that time period, he averaged 5.3 assists per game. All right? So he was definitely not a guy that was, you know, unwilling to pass the ball. What some people have to recognize is that for a lot of his career, he played in a triangle offense, or at least something mimicking the triangle offense. And because of the fact that there's constant movement, one guy's not holding the basketball, you know, which I think a lot of fans are used to seeing today, where one perimeter guy has the ball in his hands a lot, so he's able to score a lot of points, get a lot of rebounds, especially defensive rebounds, get a lot of assists. That's not something that's going to happen in a triangle offense. A guy may get a lot of points, but he's not usually going to get a lot of assists. You know, oftentimes in triangle offense, different players may handle the ball handling responsibilities. But let's just gloss over some of these things. You know, I'm trying not to drag this video too long. Kobe was an amazing competitor. He was feared by his opponents, but he was respected as well. It's just amazing to me how they try to diminish his legacy today. A lot of people in the media. You know, you had Shannon Sharp today talking about, well, Kobe didn't win since, you know, the last time he won a championship was 2010. Yeah, that was 13 years ago, but Kobe retired 7 years ago. When last time, you know, a certain guy won an MVP? You know, but anyway, Kobe Bryant proved that he could win a championship outside of Shaq. And here we are 3 years after his untimely passing, and his loss is still felt throughout the basketball world. It really annoys me that sometimes they're trying to, like, recreate him. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to replace him with these pretenders, whether it's Devin Booker or Jason Tatum. And I'm not disparaging their games, but they're not Kobe Bryant. There's only one Kobe Bryant. It's like there's only one Michael Jordan. But let's look at his numbers. Let's look at his numbers before I go forward. Kobe Bryant played in 1,346 games over 20 seasons. He averaged 25 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 44.7% shooting from the floor. Now, one thing that has to be noted about this whole thing with field goal percentage, because a lot of Kobe detractors like to harp on that, saying he's overrated as a shooter. And, well, there's certain things you got to look at. Today, the average field goal percentage, despite the fact that teams shot 34 three-point attempts per game on average this year, despite the fact that they made 12 threes a game and attempted 34. The league field goal percentage this year was 47.5%. That's the highest it's been since going all the way back to the 1989-90 season, when only 6.6 attempts were taken from beyond the arc on average. When Kobe Bryant was at his zenith in the mid-2000s, the league average was 45%, right? So he was actually shooting right around league average. And considering that he was taking so many shots, and considering that he was, for his era, a pretty prolific three-point shooter, taking about 4 or 5 a game. Remember his last year in the NBA, he took 7 three-point attempts per contest, and largely that was because his lack of mobility. You know, he had lost a lot of quickness because of the Achilles rupture. Unlike Kevin Durant, he was never able to recover from that. He also had a lot of other wear and tear injuries throughout his career. But this was a guy that pushed his body beyond normal human capacity. And I think a lot of Kobe detractors forget that when they constantly deride the guy. You know, Kobe also took a great percentage of his shots from mid-range. Or when I say mid-range, I mean 16 to 23 feet out. All right? 48% of his shot attempts for his career were 16 to 23 feet out. Compared to, let's say LeBron, right? With LeBron, approximately 47% of his points have come in the paint. So that tells you where both guys are scoring. And that's why LeBron has a 50+% career field goal percentage. He's so big, he's so strong, you can't really stop him. Kobe, 6'6", 205, generally. Most of his shots were from mid-range out to the three-point line. And he was often double-teamed. So when you look at these things, this is why his field goal percentage, the area he played in, the spacing wasn't quite the same. Defenses weren't handicapped. That's partially why he shot such a much lower percentage than LeBron James and other players. I mean, field goal percentage in general were lower in the mid-2000s. Three-point shooting, he was about 33%. He was never a great three-point shooter. He was more of a rhythm shooter. He was also more of an on-the-move three-point shooter rather than a spot-up shooter. I remember the last couple of years he played in the NBA, he was trying to be a spot-up shooter from outside or in general because he just couldn't create his own shot as well as he once did because of his lack of quickness and mobility wasn't the same. And he struggled with that. Kobe was more of an on-the-move three-point shooter. But when he got hot, he got hot. I mean, it's a reason why he once owned and then co-owned the record for most threes in the game with 12. So he most definitely could get hot from outside. He was a tremendous free throw shooter. 84% for his career. And I believe 1 year he shot, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, 1 year, 2006-07, he shot nearly 87% from the line. Excuse me. Between 2000 and 2013, Kobe averaged over 28 points a game, 5.7 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 1.6 steals, 45% shooting from the floor, better than 33% shooting from outside, and 84% from the foul line. And in the post-Shaq years, but before Gasol arrived, which would be 2004 to 2007, during that time period, he averaged nearly 32 points a game, 5.6 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1.5 steals, 45% shooting from the floor, 34% from three-point range. He attempted nearly 6 per contest, and he went to the foul line over 10 times a game and shot 85% from the line. Kobe Bryant, as far as his career accomplishments go, they're amazing. Kobe Bryant, of course, scored 33,643 points, grabbed 7,047 rebounds, and dished out 6,306 assists. And he was a 5-time NBA champion, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, the league MVP 2007-2008. Should have had more MVPs than that. 18-time NBA All-Star, 4-time NBA All-Star Game MVP, a record that he co-owns with Bob Pettit. 11-time All-NBA First Team, 2-time All-NBA Second Team, 2-time All-NBA Third Team, 9 times NBA All-Defensive First Team. I believe that's a record he shares with Michael Jordan and Kevin Garnett. 3-time NBA All-Defensive Second Team, 2-time NBA Scoring Champion, 1997 Slam Dunk Contest Champion, NBA All-Rookie Second Team. He's on the 75th anniversary team that came out recently, posthumously. His numbers 8 and 24 are retired by the Los Angeles Lakers. He's the only player to have 2 numbers retired by the same team. Gatorade National Player of the Year 1996, Naismith Prep Player of the Year 1996, McDonald's All-American 1996, First Team Parade All-American 1996, and Fourth Team Parade All-American 1995. He won Olympic gold in Beijing and won Olympic gold in London 2008, 2012, and he won gold in FIBA, with FIBA, the championship in Las Vegas in 2007. Kobe was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1978. His father was former NBA player Joe Jellybean Bryant. Kobe was named after the famous Tokyo-based steak meat cut Kobe, which is one of the most tastiest cuts of meat that there are. His middle name, Bean, comes from Joe Bryant's nickname, Jellybean. Kobe began playing basketball at the age of 3, and he was seen as a basketball prodigy from a young age. And he soon became a very talented player who starred in Lower Merion High School in Lower Merion, a suburb outside of Philadelphia. And during his junior year, he averaged 31 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, nearly 4 blocks, and over 2 steals. Despite the fact that during his freshman year, on Lower Merion's varsity team, they only went 4 and 20. The last 3 years, they went 77 and 13. And he wound up becoming Pennsylvania's all-time leading scorer, or Southeastern Pennsylvania's all-time leading scorer with 2,883 points, surpassing both Wilt Chamberlain and Lionel Simmons. Kobe Bryant received several awards for his outstanding performance during his senior year at Lower Merion. These include being named Naismith High School Player of the Year, Gatorade Men's National Basketball Player of the Year, a McDonald's All-American, a First Team Parade All-American, and a USA Today All USA first team player. Kobe Bryant initially considered going to college, but seeing Kevin Garnett go pro made him rethink that, and he soon decided to try to be go into the 1996 NBA draft and bypass college altogether. Before the 1996 NBA draft, Bryant had worked out in Los Angeles, where he scrimmaged against former Lakers players Larry Drew and Michael Cooper, and according to those who were present, he destroyed them. At the time, the Lakers were looking to trade their starting center Vlade Divac for a player's draft rights to free up salary cap space to make an offer to then free agent center Shaq. Bill Branch, the Charlotte Hornets head scout at the time, said that the Hornets agreed to trade their number 13 pick to the Lakers the day before the draft. Before the trade agreement, the Hornets never considered drafting Bryant. During the draft, the Lakers told the Hornets whom to select minutes before the pick was made. Bryant was the first guard drafted directly out of high school. After the draft, the trade was put in jeopardy when Vlade Divac threatened to retire rather than to be traded from Los Angeles. However, on June 30th, Divac relented on his threat, and the trade was made final on July 9th, 1996, when the league's off-season moratorium ended. Since Bryant was still 17 at this time, his parents had to co-sign his contract with the Lakers until he was able to sign his own when he turned 18 before the season began. Bryant signed a 3-year rookie contract totaling $3.5 million. Well, I can kind of summarize the next few years. He didn't get a lot of playing time. He played behind Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones was a really, really good player, all-star level player. Kobe was just naturally more talented, but Kobe was also raw. And at this time, it was not in custom for high school players to get playing time or significant playing time. This was especially true with then Lakers coach Del Harris, who did not like to play young players. So for the first couple of years of Kobe Bryant's career, he played behind Eddie Jones. His first year, he only averaged 7.6 points, but then again, he only played 15 minutes per contest. And the next year, he averaged 15.4 points per game in 26 minutes of play. His first year, he won the slam dunk contest. His second year, I believe at the time, maybe it still holds the record, but at the time he was the youngest all-star in the history of the NBA at just 19 years of age. And Kobe, I remember that all-star game. It was in New York. He went one-on-one against the man Michael Jordan and held his own. 98-99 was the first year that I believe he was a starter. That was the strike year. But this time Eddie Jones had been traded to, I think, the Hornets. So that freed up room for Kobe Bryant to now be the starting shooting guard on the Lakers. That year, Kobe averaged nearly 20 points per game, which was then a career high. The Lakers made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, as they had the year before, but they were ultimately swept by the eventual champion Spurs. 99-2000, Kobe Bryant upped it a bit to 22.5 points per game. That was a year that the Lakers also had acquired Glenn Rice, who was not a real good fit for that offense, that team, but he did manage to average 17 points a game. Shaq had his most dominant individual campaign, winning his one and only MVP, averaging nearly 30 points per game, completely dominated in the NBA Finals, and Kobe Bryant and the Lakers, well, Kobe Bryant won his first championship. The Lakers won their first championship in 12 years. After that year, Kobe Bryant no longer wanted to play in the shadow of Shaq. And starting in 2000, 2001, Kobe wanted to showcase his game more. You know what I mean? Kobe had been working on his game, working on his craft, and Kobe took a phenomenal jump in the 2000, 2001 season. Sometimes it was hard to believe that he was only 22 years old. But that year, in 68 games, he averaged 28.5 points per game, 5.9 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.7 steals. Shot 46.4% from the floor, 85% from the line. The Lakers that year would win their second championship in a row. They had one of the most dominant postseason runs in the history of the NBA. They went 15-1. They only lost Game 1 of the 2001 NBA Finals to the Sixers when Al Iverson, who was league MVP that year, scored 48 points. They would go on the three-peat the very next year, 2001-2002, sweeping the then New Jersey Nets in 4 games. By this time, there was rumblings of friction between Kobe and Shaq. And this made for a lot of great TV discussions, ESPN, social media, well, the limited social media that we had at the time, barbershops, whatever, newspapers. The Lakers failed to make it to the NBA Finals that year. They were eliminated by the San Antonio Spurs. In 2004, with a team that was revamped and included an aging Gary Payton and Karl Malone, they made it all the way to the NBA Finals, where they were shockingly upsetted in 5 by the Detroit Pistons. That would be the last time that Kobe and Shaq would play together. Shaq was traded after that season, and Kobe became the man on that team. But also, it was during this time period that Kobe was going through his own personal peccadillos, personal traumas, with an allegation that I don't really have to talk too much about. We know what it was about. Ultimately, after that situation was resolved, Kobe's focus totally was on basketball. He had a disappointing 2004-05 season by his standards, but the very next year, Kobe Bryant came back and had one of the most dominant campaigns in the history of the NBA, averaging over 35 points per game for the Lakers, and winning his first scoring title. 2006-2007, he had his second consecutive scoring title, averaging better than 31 points a game. Incidentally, Kobe has the third most 50-point games in the history of the NBA, 25 during the regular season, 26 when you include the playoffs, trailing only Wilt Chamberlain with 122 total 50-point games, and Michael Jordan's 39. Although Kobe was individually brilliant, he was becoming frustrated with losing, and upper management listened to Kobe's threats, even at one point threatening to request a trade if the organization didn't do something demonstrative to show that they were trying to win. So they did make a move, and they acquired Pau Gasol. That year, the Lakers made it all the way to the NBA Finals, despite the fact that they were without Andrew Bynum in that series. And I think they had another key injury, but I can't remember. But anyway, despite that, they were able to still hang in with the Boston Celtics for 6 games, ultimately losing. But in 2009-2010, the Lakers won back-to-back championships, Kobe winning then his 4th and 5th NBA championships. Kobe was only 31 years old at the time, and there was a legitimate belief that Kobe had a chance to surpass Michael Jordan as the GOAT. At least that was the online discussion. The mainstream media stole this argument into what is now this LeBron versus Jordan thing. We started that debate over a decade ago with 2 players that were actually comparable in their play style. The next couple of years, the Lakers would stay amongst the fold, at least as far as contenders. There was a trade that was rescinded that would have brought Chris Paul to the Lakers. For some reason, that trade was rescinded. Dwight Howard came to town. He was not a good fit playing next to the Mamba, the Black Mamba. Steve Nash came aboard, but he just was not a good fit. Kobe tried his best to keep the team afloat, but in his 17th season, the wear and tear of regular season and long playoff runs finally took their toll, and Kobe suffered a catastrophic Achilles rupture. After that, he was never the same player. He was never the same player. And in 2016, he retired. Afterward, he stayed away from the game for a while, worked on businesses. I think he won an Oscar for an animated cartoon, got in other endeavors. As 2020 neared, he was starting to go back to watching basketball, coming back to Laker games, and bringing his daughter Gianna there. He expressed his sadness at the passing of David Stern early January 2020. And on January 25th, 2020, he sent his congratulations on social media via Twitter to LeBron James, who had passed him at the time on the all-time scoring list. January 26th, less than 24 hours later, matter of fact, maybe a little over 12 hours later, we all received the news that reverberated around the world and sent shockwaves throughout the sports world. Kobe was gone at age 41, but it'll never be forgotten. Number 2, second greatest shooting guard of all time, Kobe Bean Bryant.